So brother, I had a good opportunity today to kind of let myself be reminded of something pretty important. One of my friends earlier today, whenever I was discussing the topic of tonight's episode upcoming with him, he actually asked me a pretty good question. He asked it not really understanding what we were about to really dive into, the depth of it, but he asked it nevertheless, and it was kind of dope. He asked me, "Oh, okay, so let me." Because I discussed with him that we were talking about the comic book industry in general and certain things that are happening with it, And now he asked me, okay, so do you like it when people buy the books more, the hardbacks, as he called them, or the digital, the screens, the subscriptions through the cell phone or the Kindle or things like that? And I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting, man. Honestly, to the utmost, no matter what, I just appreciate it whenever I know that the comic fandom out there is supporting what they're passionate about, Any of us really could find a way to get our stuff for free, but there's not many ways better to support a brand, a name, etc. that you like than actually paying for that thing, That's honorable, that's awesome. Plus, it, continues, that entity, in this case, comic industry, that hey, you guys can continue what you're doing because I want you to do so because I'm paying your price to do so.
Yeah, I always feel like there's this kind of ongoing war as to whether digital is the future. No, floppies are forever. No, trade paperbacks are the future.
Floppies.
And it's one of those things where it's like, as long as you're reading comics, that's always what's most important.
Exactly.
It's like that is the number one thing about the whole argument is that it doesn't really matter.
You know what my question would be if a friend, if you told me, hey Kevin, I bought a comic, my question wouldn't be, did you buy it for your phone or did you buy it for your laptop?
Mm-hmm.
No, my question would be, which one did you buy, brother? I want to read it too. Yeah, I mean, that's really what's important here.
Now that the political statements are out of the way, the correct answer is Omni, trade paperbacks, graphic novels all day long. That's what you buy. Okay?
He's not biased or anything. All these big ass books here, all these freaking Bibles here. Yeah,
I'm slowly trying to inch away from trade paperbacks, and the trades that I have, which I keep in another bookshelf over here off camera. I'm looking to replace them with Omnis. I can do that with some of them, but with others, I'll probably have to wait, and with some, they may never get Omnis. So,
ladies and gentlemen, I just want to brag real quick. That's how I got to a couple of my comics, because Q had the 2 small books or something, and then he got the big awesome Omni, and then I'm just like, so what you gonna do with them small ones, brother? I ain't picky. My man Quentin is a mad collector, so kudos to you, brother.
The hunt goes on,
dude. Your library, this bookshelf alone is a subject of envy, because we got some awesome Omnis. And for those of you who are diligently watching the YouTube channel, for one, hello. For two, you get to see this, and you might be able to spot constant changes because Q is buying more books. Like at this point, it's almost at the point where you get an Amazon box, I pause my game, or I put down my book, or I stop what I'm doing, and I get up, and I'm like, hey, buddy, which one you got there? Which book is this, brother?
And another clarification, I do want it to be known that Amazon is only a last resort, except they're the only ones that carry a book I'm looking for at the time.
I didn't. Yeah, hopefully that's not slanderous or blasphemous or anything like that.
Otherwise, I do get my books from either InStockTrades.com or CheapGraphicNovels.com. Those are the 2 places I support right now, and actually, we're going to be talking about those a little bit tonight as well. And I guess with that being said, guys, welcome back to the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and as always, I'm here with the homie Kevin.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how you guys all doing out there? Hope you got your favorite nerdy graphic novel in hand, be it on a small screen like your tablet or in your awesome hard paperback, because what we're talking about today are comics in general.
Yes, we're talking about the state of the comic book industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I'm sure a lot of you may know, the world of comic books right now is in a bit of a disarray. And while a lot of people in the industry will tell you that comics and also other businesses are struggling right now because of the pandemic with coronavirus. To be fair, myself and other collectors and connoisseurs, if you will, of comics, we think that this.
I'm sorry, you didn't say that fancy enough. Okay, you got to drop it on there. Connoisseurs. Let me jut that jaw. Yeah, but yeah, no. Please continue.
A lot of us feel that this is something that was going to happen sooner rather than later, but this pandemic just kind of sped up the process.
That kind of seems to be, in preparing for tonight's episode, there was some research which had to be done, if only to do if only to do the subject more justice. That kind of seems the problem, honestly, But yeah, man, let's go ahead and get into it, brother.
Yes,
yeah.
Let's do this. So what I had in for my preparation here was I had a couple of bullet points here and topics of discussions, some of which were from my own thoughts as to why the comic industry is suffering. But
sure.
This list is also compiled of thoughts from other collectors and readers.
Okay.
Both just consumers and also comic book shop owners as well.
Okay.
So that way we can get kind of a well-rounded viewpoint as to what everyone's thoughts are.
Sure.
And I figure we kind of talk about these as we kind of go down because they all each deserve mentioning in some capacity because these are
I
very
agree.
interesting points.
I mean, this is kind of a general topic. Mm-hmm. It's something that is allowed to be multifaceted.
Oh yes.
Where multiple opinions have room for truth. So there's a lot of reasons why the comic book industry may be, going downhill some or flourishing some, as we'll discuss in some broad detail here tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, this isn't on my list, and I don't think that anyone would think this way, but I think it begs to be mentioned anyway. Okay. No one is saying, or no one should say that. No, the comic book industry is just fine. We're gonna come out of this Corona thing, and then sales bounce right back. No, that's not how. Unfortunately, in the perfect world, sure, it'd be like that.
We love reading fantasy. Don't be trapped in it.
Right. That should be the disclaimer. Oh yeah.
That's gonna be the epitaph underneath our title. Yeah. There you go.
So we'll go ahead and talk about the very first thing here that I have on my list, and I think this is actually a really good point.
Sure.
And that is the price of comics are too high.
That's true.
Yes, and this is more particularly speaking of floppies. Floppies being single issue comics, things that are typically 20 to 26 pages.
Mm-hmm.
They're too high.
I mean, that's the most common example. Whenever you stop your average Joe or your typical Susan on the street and say, "Hey, do you like comics? Yes or no?" and you hold a mic in their face and they get mad at you and tell you to please leave. We haven't done that yet, and that's typically the image that pops into mind when you think comics. The non-diehard fans, in other words, the people who would call themselves normal, whatever that is, that's typically what people have grown up with. That was the mainstay issue. It was like the small magazine-esque booklet. A lot of room for ad spacing growing up, a lot of common stuff there, But that's not so popular anymore. It's like you don't see the big page-wide ad for like some video game console or something or the other.
Yeah, floppies don't really carry ads. Like if they carry ads, it's for their own shit, So it'd be like an ad for another comic, if anything. But no, there's no more ads for Sega or Acclaim or
or buy this He-Man toy.
Right.
Oh man, that's a throwback. But yeah, no, you're right. That's a mainstay issue. And dude, I never see you buy a floppy. Like we have a few whenever we used to run the comic book store together. But that was it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're over on my shelf, and I know we got a few like down on the shelf here. Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah, and and that's neither here nor there in regard to the issues. Like, I mean, my reasons for not buying floppies is absolutely nothing to do with floppies themselves. I have nothing but respect for floppies. If it wasn't for single issue comics, then I probably wouldn't be a collector in the first place.
Right.
So obviously I want single issue comics to thrive. I want floppies to continue to sell. I want them to sell better. And we're going to get into that as to how that can happen. But as far as the price point for floppies, they right now, if you're looking at the big two being Marvel and DC, they range anywhere from they sometimes can be as low as $2.99, but for the most point, you'll see the price point be $3.99 to $4.99.
That's kind of my experience too. I see most of them with the pre-printing of $2.99, but then what I'll see is a pre-printing of $2.99. They're appropriately stocked into a sleeve, some type of protective layer over it, but then the store has it marked up to like $3.94 or something dumb like that, and it's like,
Yeah, most that you see now, though, it'll be printed on the comic that is $3.99 or that is $4.99.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I
was just
mean,
talking about
yeah.
some of the local stores, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, comic book shop markup, there really shouldn't be much of a thing, to be honest. Like, if you guys go to your local comic shops, hopefully that's...
It's more the amalgam shops, I've noticed, where it's like they sell comics and other things, but comics are not the priority, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the reason why, these price points are a bit of an issue is because the demographic of comics, which is something else that we got to hit on, for the most part, they are adult males from late 20s up into the 50s. That is the main demographic for comics is males aged 25 to like 50. That's the main chunk of demographics for comics. Now, if you don't fit into that demographic, don't think I'm saying that you don't read comics. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that for the most part, comics are bought by men in that age group. So that's just the way it is. So here's the issue now. The reason why it's that demographic and the reason why it's not expanding younger is because the entry point is too expensive. So say, for example, like when you and I were kids, in the 90s, if we wanted a comic, we go into a comic book store, and back then they were anywhere from $1 to $1.50 to $2, and that's a much easier price point. So if you want to make a pull list, like what you collect on a weekly basis, that can range from anywhere from it always depends on your preference. I have friends that collect roughly 4 to 5 comics per week, and at a price point of $2, that's
it adds up.
Yeah, it adds up, and it's still doable, but it adds up. And if you're a kid, you're at the behest of your parents, and if you're a teenager,
better cut the grass.
Yeah. And if you're a teenager, even if you have a job as a teenager, that price point is like, well, $2 for a comic isn't bad. Or I could save up my paycheck and get this new electronic that didn't exist in the 90s when we were kids. So it's not only that comics are competing with other things that, other technological advances, but it's also the fact that comics now are just way more expensive than what they once were. So if you have a pull list now of, 4 or 5 comics, whereas beforehand it was, maybe $10. 10 to $15. Now you're looking at something that's way more than that, possibly double.
Possibly, if your collection and your current interest runs deep enough, you could be spending an extra $20+ a week on just like a stack to continue reading your stories. Now, real quick, this is not to deter the subject line. However, this is to help us continue discussing floppies and potential remedies and potential, I suppose, other issues maybe. More or less, Oh, fuck yeah! I didn't even mean it to be. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thank you, brother. I would have ran right past that.
Hey, like you find the opening, man. I'm gonna pass you the ball every time.
I appreciate you. Thank you, brother.
Keep shooting them threes. Shoot from the free throw line every time. Just shoot from the half court line. There you go.
Oh wow!
That
should be worth 4 points. I don't care who tells me what. See? The ghost agrees. Yeah. Air conditioner turned on, door closed. But anyway, so actually, a potential remedy for that point, the idea of things being too expensive for comics and trying to get really into the comic world, because that's regarding floppies. We haven't even talked about the price of like an omnibus or any other hard trade paperback or anything like that. Whatever. I just threw them all to one term there. one potential remedy for the idea of a price point, something that we could definitely like get more involved with here, is signing up for a subscription service where it's like monthly you pay blank in order to have like this is not a sponsorship at all. I just need names to actually detail what I'm talking about, so don't sue. But Marvel Unlimited, or DC Universe or cool things like that,
Right.
because that subscription service definitely would be cheaper than buying your $20 potentially more or less whatever per week.
The issue with that
Sure.
with these apps, new comics they're not released on these apps. So
that's true. Yeah.
And so like because if you're a weekly collector, then obviously you're getting shit fresh off the press.
Right.
It's brand new when it touches your hands, and unless you. So like you could pay the $10 a month for Marvel Unlimited. That's what I do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is I'm not going to be able to read what my buddies who go to the comic shop every week, what they get to read.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Like I said, this is going to be pros and cons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so we talked about the issue of you could buy digital comics as well, but here's the problem: digital comics are also just way too overpriced. And I want to still go ahead and preface this as well. I fucking love Marvel comics. I grew up with them. I read them constantly. I have a lot of Marvel comics, just as many as I do DC. Marvel is the main culprit for a lot of the issues here, even more so than DC. I think that both Marvel and DC comics are overpriced, but Marvel, they're just way fucking proud of their shit.
Again, we don't want to be sued. That's not the objective of tonight. We're trying to fly under the radar, people. I had to get into my incognito voice a little for that one. Yeah. Because I feel like I just heard a gun cock somewhere.
Right. But I mean, it's true.
Oh boy! All right, I'm done.
Marvel's their price point is just ridiculous, and so if you're looking to get into comics, I mean, then obviously, if you're looking to start collecting comics, then the floppies is a very safe start because typically you won't spend a lot of money, especially if just collecting one run. But the issue is, if you're looking to really seriously start collecting, then Marvel has kind of written themselves out of the race as far as getting new readers in. Now, Marvel, I would say to compliment them, they are also selling more comics than anyone else, including DC.
Yeah.
Especially now, like they had their back and forth thing for a while, but like for the last few years, it's definitely been Marvel that's been selling more.
In most of the charts I saw, so first off, I saw numerous charts that were giving me different information bits. So it's hard to find something concrete, or at least in what I was looking up and everything. However, most of them concisely agree that Marvel skyrocketed come 2005, 2006, right around that time frame. Maybe 2004 early on.
It's a great time for Marvel comics.
And skyrocketed up. And it makes sense. Because that's also whenever we got a bunch of cool ideas and rumors and things like that,
and honestly,
get movies.
Honestly, they really started to, because DC was whipping their asses for a while, and here's a slight hint for things to come in the future. But Marvel was losing hard to DC in the comics race up until the Ultimate Universe came about. Once Marvel Comics created the Ultimate Universe, and we had that gang come together and to really formulate and create this new universe, then that's when Marvel Comics really skyrocketed and started to take off, and then started beating DC. So you guys can look forward to more content about that in the next coming weeks. Ooh, ultimate shit. Yes.
I feel like that was more appropriate for a button rather than us doing bad voiceovers. Yep. We pressed like 3 buttons. Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're not wrong there, brother. Definitely.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the thing about the price points here is that with these floppies, they're way too expensive. Most people would agree. And the argument that you'll get from Marvel or DC is, well, with the quality of paper that we use and the quality of colors and inks that we use, we have to have our books priced at this point, and to sustain the company or to sustain our employees. And I really don't buy that, simply because sales are to the point right now where if you compare them to 20, 30 years ago, there's no way that you actually think you're making more money now than you were, back in the early to mid 2000s.
Give us some detail on that real quick, actually, because that is intriguing.
Yes. So like the comic book industry as a whole, like if you were to take all of them, Marvel, DC,
Sure.
Image, Valiant, you name it, take all the Marvel, all the comic companies, and
Okay.
combine their total sales together, I from what I could discover, it's
Are we
gonna
looking at this from like a perspective of one entire year of sales? I
yes,
guess.
one
Okay.
year,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. From one entire year of sales combined,
Yeah.
we're looking at about a little over $2 billion gross.
Actually, I saw the same thing. Yeah, I saw something very similar. Whenever it's just showed comic statistics in general, rather than breaking it down company by company.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's crazy. Knowing that the comic industry can be a multi-billion-dollar company,
Yeah.
but over 2 billion. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But like the thing of it is, from my perspective, like
Sure.
it's not great. You guys could definitely do better because like that's from all the comic companies combined. And yes, of course, most of that's going to come from Marvel and then DC, and then it's going to be sprinkled amongst the other ones. But the point of the matter is, Marvel releases one blockbuster movie, and it's already blown that number out of the water. So, and that's going to get into something else that's another point here too,
Sure.
about the state of the comic book industry is, once again, this is particularly at Marvel, they view themselves as being safe behind the glass castle that is Disney, but Disney does not want your comics, they want your intellectual properties. They could give a fuck less about the comics. Once it gets to, if it gets to a point where, especially now that everybody's hurting for money, if it gets to a point that Disney and also Warner Brothers or AT&T with DC Comics, you can go to a point where they're like, it costs us almost just as much money to run and print comics as we are making back from them. This is not something that's truly profitable for us. So if we have to cut something, there's a very good chance that the comic industry or that the publishing rights could be sold off to someone else entirely, because it's just not as profitable as what they want.
I mean, when it comes to the great monster like that, yeah, you're definitely right. Because, first off, when it comes to the world of sales, the first lesson learned, or that should be learned, really, in that sad business world of fucking sales, is that you can always do more. Which is so sad and true, which can really be heart-wrenching for people that aren't really, gun-ho for the salesmanship industry or whatever. In this case, in that line of business, comics, of course it could always be better, and I'm not going to argue that. That's why settle,
Yeah.
and that's completely agreeable. But one thing I do also want to say here, regarding the sales of, I guess, like the whole comic industry and everything like that, I mean, even to this day, luckily, ever since the 2000s, one thing that I know I saw in the stats, kind of looking at them as a total, that was when things began to really skyrocket for most of the companies. Now, some of them have been slowly increasing.
Yes.
Which have, even to this year, 2020, they've still been showing somewhat of an increase, but that number still hasn't gotten super high. Some of the charts have all shown kind of similar, lines of, progress, quote unquote, where it's like, oh, early 2000s, all of a sudden Marvel, and they jumped off the ground like they were the Hulk, dude, and it was awesome. And then they got kind of rocky every now and then, and now it's on that steady plateau down. It's not like a steep plateau, don't get me wrong, it's not a crashing plane bad, but it is definitely something decreasing. And DC was kind of behind them for a long time in the early 2000s, and now they're kind of both sitting, a little close. DC definitely less than Marvel, regarding the charts. I do gotta say though that the numbers that they're riding and coasting at right now are definitely better than anything that was in the 90s, which we could laugh at the 90s time.
Oh yeah. You look at the 90s and Marvel almost went bankrupt. Hell, DC was, or technically Warner Brothers was very close to buying out Marvel back then. So they were
That would've been
definitely
interesting.
Yeah. They were definitely in a rough spot back then. So the issue is though is that even though sales are definitely better than the 90s, that's like saying, well, we're not going bankrupt, because that's essentially what it is. Like their numbers are better than about to go bankrupt.
Right. Well, no, that wasn't made to be sounding like a justification,
Right,
and I
right,
hope it
right.
wasn't interpreted as such by any person
Hey,
listening.
Are you a Marvel shield?
What?
Son of a
What?
bitch.
Son of a bitch! I'm a scroll. But because that makes sense. But no. What I do want to be heard, however, is that the numbers are still decreasing from these companies.
Right.
The stats show it. No matter what site you go to, no matter what charting system they use, it still shows that these companies are still losing sales comparatively.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to kind of reiterate this also, and then we can move on to the next point.
Sure.
I spoke earlier about how with AT&T / Warner Brothers and with Disney, I want to make sure that you guys kind of understand the urgency of the situation here, being that these giant parent corporations, they do not care about our comic books. They do not. They simply don't. They don't care about the publishing. Okay, that's what's in danger of going. What they care about is the intellectual properties. That's where the movies come from, the TV shows and the video games, aka the real money makers. That's what these companies care about. So I'm not saying that this could happen. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it definitely could happen where you could see one day the publishing rights for DC being sold. You can see the publishing rights for Marvel Comics being sold, but still seeing Warner Brothers and Disney retaining the movie rights to these companies and the television show rights and the video game rights. That's what they want. They don't want or really care about the publishing rights because, once again, in comparison, that's where the money is. They're not making money from comics.
So this is the second time we've brought this up, and it definitely deserves it. Now, granted, everything that we're talking about, neither of us are involved in, behind the red tape line of work when it comes to Warner Brothers or Marvel or Disney or whatever the fuck. We don't have an inside scoop for that. Let's have this discussion because it is definitely getting somewhat pessimistic because we don't want productions to be sold off or closed or whatever the hell.
Or actually, maybe we do, to be honest.
Well, let's go into that slowly here because we're blowing open minds too many at a time. So again, let's calm the fuck down and go backwards a little bit here. Regarding the productions offices and everything like that, do you think honestly that there is just no chance for any type of chapter or industry within these companies to... I sound so lackluster in my hope in asking this question, but do you think that there's any, I suppose, potential light in the idea that there might be some entity, some force of nature within these corporations, your parent companies, Warner Brothers, Disney, etc., that do say, hey, let's try to keep productions going. Let's try to at least put comic books to print and everything like that for the fandom's sake, for whatever, etc. Because it does seem presently that Marvel's trying. Granted, that does lead to a couple of discussions we're going to have tonight, that some of their tries are cringeworthy. But here we are. That's not what I'm asking.
So, just so I'll make sure I'm hearing you right, you're asking
if there's any hope for the productions industry.
For comics moving forward, essentially.
I mean, not saying that there isn't hope at all, because that's black and white. I'm asking more about the gray, the in between here, where we're saying that the productions offices are, potential money killers when it comes to the mentality of profits versus lack of. Is there any way that we can help, or not, I guess help, that's a dumb choice of word. Is there any hope you believe for the comic industry productions offices to turn a profit, to take those charts and plateau and then eventually increase back up?
I definitely do think that there is, and it's going to take a lot of energy, passion, and creativity from the heads of those offices.
That's true.
So like for example, I'll probably reiterate this again in a couple weeks here, but with the Ultimate line of comics, one reason that it did so well is that they had a new guy come into town. Basically, they had a new person to head over Marvel Comics for a while.
Okay.
The last name was Jim. I forget his first name, but anyway, he what he did was when the Ultimate line was released, like you can have a great product, but if no one knows about it, then it doesn't really matter.
True.
What he did was he got super creative because he wasn't familiar with comics at all. But what he did was great. It was brilliant. He put comics in places where they typically weren't. So like your supermarkets, your Walmarts, he sent them a shitload of comics. And that way when people who don't peruse comic shops, when they would do their grocery shopping or whatever kind of shopping, they see
they're
comics.
forced to look at them. They're forced to look at
shelves.
at new Ultimates. This issue has Wolverine on the cover. Looks like he's running with cars. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's a famous issue cover.
Yeah, that's like what was that issue number 1 for Ultimate X-Men? It's got one of the early ones. Yeah,
I remember it because again, Ultimates was that was one of the books that you and I co-read separate occasions in high school.
Middle school or high school?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They kind of like all roll into just
they
school,
do.
you know? It's like, what size and age was I? But yeah.
But no, it was a brilliant idea and it worked. Yeah. Because, I mean, for one thing, thankfully, the Ultimate line of comics turned out to be really phenomenal and reinvented Marvel at the time. But on top of that, it put comics in the hands of people who wouldn't usually see them. And so now they read issue 1 of Ultimate Spider-Man and they're hooked because they've never read a comic like that before. They didn't know comics could be like that. And so that was a really smart move. Now it is a little bit of a risk because like you're spending more money to put your product in different places.
I was about to say, it's my turn to sound like the pessimistic one. I don't think you can do that today. I don't think companies would take a chance and say, like your local grocery store or something, like your Walmart or something. I don't think they would agree to a business deal like that and say, yeah, you know what, send us some stock. We'll put it on our shelves. I doubt that there'd be so many companies to be able to do that nowadays, or willing even to do that.
I will play the optimist to that.
Oh, this is fun.
I think that these companies would be because they'd be like, oh, you want us to carry your Batman comics? Well, my son is really looking forward to that new Batman movie. Oh, the Avengers. Oh, my family loves the Avengers. Sure, yes.
Okay. I mean,
there is a thing of brand recognition because back when we were talking about with the Ultimate Comics, these movies weren't really a thing. Like we're talking the year 2000.
Okay.
But now there's such brand recognition. I think that a lot of these companies could see the potential value of carrying something that has such brand recognition.
I'm still iffy on it. Yeah, I am.
To each their own, Dan.
To each their own, yeah. And this could potentially deter the conversation, but I think that's just because things have changed too much, honestly. You know. But yeah, that could lead into a whole nother topic of discussion, honestly. Yeah. Less on the comic book industry as itself, you know. I don't know, man. It's just people don't stop and peruse anymore. You know, people don't.
Yeah, I mean, like that's
right.
I mean,
like when I'm going grocery shopping, I see people more rushing to and fro rather than oh, let's go by the book alley over there. Let's go see what's over in all the book lanes and stuff. You know.
I mean, like that's the thing. Like I don't know to compare that to then because I just don't know.
Oh, I did it all the time growing up. In fact, I must have been a little monster growing up because my mom would willingly take me by like the book and magazine lane and stuff like that, and I'd be fascinated to look at the covers of cool things that I knew as a kid I couldn't buy or whatever. But it was kind of cool. And I remember seeing like certain nerdy subject things like I think other nerd subjects must have done the same thing that Marvel Ultimates or Mr. Jim, like you said, is trying to do or did do. Because I remember seeing like some Pokemon stuff for a while, and it's like, oh yeah, this is at my grocery store, and look at this cool book, and it's got a poster inside. What? Little knickknacks like that. Yeah. And I think my mom would get the most effective grocery shopping done while I was distracted and all that,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's neither here nor there.
And I guess that's also like kind of like my train of thought is that little kids still run to their parents with toys, begging from their parents to buy them. like that is that's an occurrence that would never end. I think
especially with toys in general.
yeah.
Damn toys, dude.
Yeah, like I think that comics could benefit from the same thing. Yeah, so it's one of those things where like they don't try, but
I got an idea. Hear me out, okay? We put trading cards, a bunch of packs of trading cards in each floppy, okay? Hear me out. You like Yu-Gi-Oh? Done. There's a pack in there. You like Pokemon? Pack in there. Magic the Gathering? Another pack in there. Done. There's a pack of every type of trading card in your floppies. It's just bulging of trading card bullshit. There you go.
I'm not associated with this idea.
Oh, it's too late. It's here. Fashion. You see the sticker right there? That's us. That's this right now.
Yeah.
I'm BSing around. Don't kid yourself. But anywho, so that's floppies, and that's the price in general. What else you got prepared on your list, brother?
Yeah, so something else that fans in particular really want changed.
Something that grinds their gears.
Something that really grinds their gears. They want the removal of identity politics and social justice talking points.
We were going to get to this subject eventually tonight. Yep. Daggum, dude. Okay. It is.
Yes. Before we jump into this, can I have a quote here from a Marvel executive. Now, this is really telling because this quote I'm pulling is from almost exactly 3 years ago.
Are we going to drop a name?
I was debating it, but for the sake of the podcast, I won't.
No. Like I said earlier, we're flying under the radar. It's okay.
But it says here, and if you guys like, I can definitely drop the source and the link. But it says here in this article that Marvel's, you guys can definitely Google this and see who it is, that Marvel's vice president of sales has blamed declining comic book sales on the studio's effort to increase diversity in female characters, saying that, quote, readers are turning up their noses at diversity and didn't want female characters out there. That was their take here. So he goes on to add, I don't know that that's really true, but that's what we saw in sales. Any character that was diverse, any character that was new, or female characters, anything that was not a core Marvel character, people were turning their nose up to, end quote. So that was what a Marvel Comics executive said when he was asked about the declining sales at Marvel. Let me be extremely clear and also blunt with this. But that quote, that tells me that Marvel, they're in such echo chambers that they are now delusional. Like, what they got from their declining sales numbers were that, well, this means that our core audience doesn't like women and they don't like diversity. When in reality, what people have been saying and tweeting for years now, no one has a problem with diversity. I'm a black man here speaking. No one has a problem with diversity. We have a problem with lack of creativity.
Yeah.
If you can name me 5 characters in the last 10 years that are new to Marvel that did not take the place of a previously established character, I would be willing to pay you money.
You know, my mind for a second was going along with the challenge, like, okay, that didn't take the place.
That's and that's what people. That's where our sales are declining. Like people don't care about the diversity thing of it all. Yes, make more female characters. Give us more ethnic characters.
That's cool.
That's great because you're representing a bigger audience. What we don't like is when you create. Okay, so we're gonna level up Jane Foster to make her the new Thor. We're gonna create Riri Williams and have her replace Tony Stark. We're gonna bring in Amadeus Cho to replace Bruce Banner.
Right.
That shows a lack of creativity, and you're killing. I mean, you're moving characters to the wayside that we love, these legacy characters, instead of creating these new characters.
So you took the words right out of my mouth because that was one of the big issues I was just gonna point out there. Another one, just to kind of help us kind of like, you know, freaking dovetail right into this thing. We don't need these new entities, these new characters that you try to make with a cool ethnic side to them or anything of the nature, or a cool woman or a diverse character, whatever have you. We don't need them to shove a political stance down the reader's throats, actually. In fact, there was, I want to say, well, never mind. I'm not going to say where this one is from. I'm going to take the example here from earlier and not, give out names or anything of the such. But there was a retailer, and they were discussing some of the other issues that Marvel in particular was having with the releases of their more present issues and more present storylines and things of the nature. The retailer was talking about the things that they wanted to see from Marvel, and it's literally the same stuff that we're talking about, the stuff that we're highlighting and, calling them out on. Quote, I don't want you guys doing that stuff. That stuff, by the way, being the political content, the let me make a statement content. He goes on, I want you to entertain. That's the job. One of my customers even said the other day, because he knew we were coming, he wants to get stories and doesn't mind a message, but he doesn't want to be beaten over the head with these things, It's like, what was the fucking line from Batwoman? Where it's like, there's only one problem. It was built for a man. Like, oh,
that suit's not made for a woman.
Shut the fuck up.
No man's gonna take credit for a woman's job. It was literally that cringeworthy. Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad. You've heard us joking about that if you've been long-time listeners. But, I mean, this guy said it perfectly. Case closed. Enough done here. Where, I get it. A political message can be a powerful thing to involve in your writing because that gives meaning and depth to your writing and makes it stand out and maybe even educates. Thumbs up. I'm down for educating. We got some dumb motherfuckers out there. They need some learning. But that does not mean I need you to take your fucking guns, your political ideas, and just beat me over the head and shoot me with them constantly, I don't need constant reminding that your woman character is more powerful than anything else, or that I am more powerful of a character because I'm diverse, And I mean, I know I probably sound horrible, and I don't mean to, because I know,
how dare you with your
I know,
whiteness?
right? Because I'm some white asshole.
You
all of a
straight
sudden.
white male, like you're the enemy of everything now.
Well,
everybody knows that it's only old straight white men who are the enemies.
And I'm still pretty young, damn it. Mentally, I'm pretty young too. I'm pretty immature.
But no, that is a great point though, and I do want to make fun and poke a hole in my earlier sentiment to you, about
okay, what's up?
Presenting a character creating the last 10 years that is original.
Yeah.
And here's the problem: is that I can do that, but the only ones I can think of are the new Warriors. And we all saw how that went. We all saw that train wreck. The one time,
I haven't heard shit about those assholes ever since.
They pushed the release date back. I will give them this. Like this, it was probably due to COVID.
It was probably we'll give it credit.
I think they pushed it. I think they pushed it back to sometime in July. And from what I heard, they're only releasing it digitally. Not getting that physical release date, huh? Not as of this recording, you're not. Who would have thought? By the way, so I haven't checked the trailer since we first watched it, but apparently, it had something of like 6,000 upvotes to over 200,000 downvotes.
Wait! I gotta look it up. What was the name of the trailer? Because I can look it up right now.
Look up a new Warriors trailer. It should probably be, unless Marvel. I guarantee you, at this point, Marvel has either taken it down or they have removed upvotes and comments. And yeah, that was the last time.
Was it the one a month ago? Marvel
Yes.
Entertainment's right there. Maybe. I'm gonna play it and not play volume because I don't want that shit playing out loud.
Yeah, like it.
There we go. Okay.
And that's kind of the thing that we're talking about here. It's like where that's not the kind of thing that we want because you're not really giving us anything new. Oh, I have it here.
Nope. This is it right here. Actually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, nice. 4.6 upvotes.
Yeah.
226,000 downvotes.
Yeah,
That's
so
appalling.
I overestimated them.
Yeah.
By like 1.4 thousand. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so only 4,500 upvotes to over 220,000 downvotes. That's ridiculous, and that's in reference to the New Warriors. So, for those who don't know what that is, we did an episode on the New Warriors trailer about a month ago when the trailer came out. So, definitely, guys, go and listen to that if you haven't. It's incredibly informative about the state of Marvel Comics right now.
And actually, for those of you who are further curious and are even potentially looking for some examples of the issues we're discussing tonight, feel free to even stick around and watch the trailer after you look it up. The New Warriors 2020 trailer. You'll see exactly prime real estate examples of what the fuck we're talking about, because it's just appalling, dude.
It's nothing but
I mean, the message isn't, but it's like, what are you doing here? Why are you trying to feel like my oh, I was about to make a religious joke. Let me not do that. Ooh, let me pump the brakes here. But why are you trying to be my school teacher about this? Yeah, I'm glad I pumped the brakes.
All right, now I want to hear it. But
Later.
That is a really great point, though, Kevin, because, like, with the introduction of as I call them, the new Warriors, because the original New Warriors weren't this.
No, they were cool.
Yeah. But these new Warriors, it's like my politics, or like what my political affiliation is irrelevant. It's irrelevant if I agree with the politics in comics. Our point is these politics don't belong in comics.
Right. Now, one quick question for you, and maybe I'm introducing this to help tie it off and help us go into other subject lines, or maybe I'm doing this to throw some gas on the fire. You tell me. I'm ready for whatever energy, brother. I'm here to fight. Not with you, against the world. But I have an idea to answer this question, and I'm going to ask it to you, and then say my idea shortly thereafter, and I want to hear your thoughts too.
All right.
The big question is, why is this happening? Why are Marvel Comics, and comics in general, to be safe, because it's not just Marvel, there's others attempting the same shit.
It's mostly Marvel.
It's mostly fucking Marvel. Like 70-30. Really. Yeah, come on. Why is the comic industry so interested, so gung-ho in making us like these politically correct, these almost ceremonious, just hardcore into their political stance, their women are powerful, their diverse is powerful, mentality. Why is that being pushed so hard? And now for my idea as to why that might be the case. I think part of it, and please take time to think on it, because I want to know your thoughts. I think part of it, actually, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is there is such a fucking large disconnect between the executives of these companies, Marvel, and their readers. The difference between Marvel Comics then versus now is that Stan Lee read comics. Jack Kirby read comics. They knew what was happening in their comic line and DC's comic line because they're big old fans.
Yeah.
I have to question whether or not Marvel executives read comics. I don't know. Someone has to tell me, oh, they actually do. And do they actually, care and passionately read comics, even other brands of comics, just for, namesake? Because I don't know if they are. If they're doing it as a business, or, hey, I like comics too. Let's, make this awesome.
I feel that, for the most part, the executives are allowing this, but the writers are creating this. And
that's fair. That's fair. I'll take that. Yeah.
And but that still, doesn't fix the issue you presented. Your value is still
the question is still
very valid.
Yeah.
And I don't rightly have the correct, or I don't know what the correct answer.
No. I mean, this is very much a question where thoughts and opinions are allowed. Because it could be multiple correct answers. I don't know. I feel like there is a disconnect. Be it between the executives who approve this unknowingly. Yeah, whatever. That looks good. Did you draw it right? Do they have 3 boobs? No? Good. Put them in. Are they supposed to have 3 boobs? No? Oh, okay. Put them in. And then maybe even the writers just being like, yeah, I'm going to make this my sermon, my manifesto.
Well, so what we do also know is that there is interaction between a lot of these comic writers on Twitter and the comic book fan base. And what I've seen time and time again, and this is terrible, is we've seen a lot of times where comic readers like ourselves will reach out to these comic writers, and sometimes out of frustration, and sometimes just out of sheer curiosity, would beg the question: why do you keep including these political stances in politics? Why do you keep forcing this agenda in comic books when we just want to be entertained?
Yeah.
And literally what half of these assholes writers say is, if you don't like our comics, then don't buy them. They're not for you. Or they'll call them slurs like bigots or racists or some type of phobes. This is what they resort to. Whenever you question their methods, they attack you. Whenever you tell them like, hey, we just want to read entertaining comics, they'll call you a bigot. They'll call you, you're some type of you're homophobic, or you're transphobic, or you're this phobic or that. They're not taking the time to. They don't have the mental fortitude to accept the criticism that the problem isn't that all these readers are suddenly bigots. Yeah. That's not the issue. The issue is your stance and the way that you go about promoting these issues.
I mean, there were past examples, past episodes that we've had where we talked about great scenes or moments in movies and TV shows or whatever have you that have done for me or you or us or whatever more politically and powerfully than an entire issue, an entire run of said forced political bullshit, dogma character, right? Mm-hmm. It's awesome when you do it right and well and creatively, and you don't try to force handle it so hard. Granted, I will say this. I will be the advocate a little bit here. That does not mean we're giving space for bigotry or closed off mentalities or anything like that. We're not saying, hey, be an asshole to these diverse individuals. That's definitely never been the fucking message here. I mean, come on. We're all human. Don't be a dick. Come on. But that doesn't mean at the same time that I go to my comic books for such, I guess, preaching, mm-hmm. Like this is an entertainment source. I read this to unplug from life, and I feel like I'm unplugging from life just to be, have fire breath breathe down my throat trying to teach me a message here,
And perhaps it'd be better received if the comic book demographic fit what they were preaching, but that's not even the case. Remember earlier I said that the core art, like most of the readers are in their late 20s to 50s.
Yeah,
that's kind of the demographic there.
Yeah,
and it's like not only are they preaching, like a lot of diversity, but they're doing a lot of it spitefully as well. They're doing it to make certain people upset or angry, which is also a weird thing to do in a comic book. But also on top of that, they're really trying to sell to an audience that doesn't buy comics.
There you go. I was about to bring that up. I applaud them for trying to do things to bring in a larger audience base, because if you do have sincerely a good idea to bring in more comic readers and to grow that demographic into multiple demographics, or hell, even just a wide-ass big population of people that say, hey, we are all totally freaking different, but we all love comics. Batman is awesome. Dope. Exactly. Yeah. That's great. But let's go back to the first key word I said. When you have a good idea for these things, when it's well executed, because you're right. At this rate, you are either there's going to be a small population, like a fraction of the already existing population of people that do buy comics, which will begin to buy comics, and your sales are going to plummet. Or it's going to become super preachy, and the people that are, they do self-identify as the audience, that you're trying so hard to represent through your forced diversity and your very preachy messaging. They're gonna feel, misrepresented, slandered, even uncomfortable reading this. I can only imagine where it's like whoa, brother, come on. Like, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, you know? It's like, you're trying so hard to preach this message. It's like, whoa, I didn't come for this, man. Like, come on.
Well, you know, let me bring a little bit of brevity here.
Sure.
When, so if we go back to I believe maybe 2016, 2017-ish.
Okay.
We'll look at the Iron Man comics. The
Sure.
Iron Man comics were, you know, they weren't like, you know, best selling, but they were Iron Man comics were always a strong sell. You know, never like really. Maybe sometimes it'll crack top 10, you know, but most of the time it's just a strong sell.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It hover around. You know, we see like 70,000, 60,000 units, and we're talking about in a month. So, you know, we'll see Iron Man on average sell about maybe we'll say 60,000 issues in a month.
Sure.
And then there was the introduction of Riri Williams, and it was a new character. People were, you know, oh, cool. So this is a new character here, introducing the Iron Man line. You know, so first appearances always kind of give it a bump, and so you know, it had like a little bit of a bump, not much.
Okay. I imagine from there, those examples, maybe it went up to like 80, 90 or something.
No, not that much of a bump.
Oh, really? So like 75.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
And and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there was something that was really telling that I would never forget. It was chilling. So as the readers realized that, oh, so we're essentially writing Tony Stark out, and this is now a Riri Williams book. We don't want to buy this. The numbers essentially were cut in half. At one point, the Iron Man numbers were around 80 something thousand, but then they got cut down to about 47,000 units sold. We're talking about in a month. Okay, that's not good. And then they spun that off, and then they said, okay, well, let's give Riri her own comic line. That's when she got her Ironheart series, you know, her own series.
So real quick side note, please continue, because that's awesome what you're doing. I want you to please to finish that thought process. I can only imagine what the hell that actually does to the quality of the story when you let it free flow like that so whimsically, where it's like, oh, whoa, they don't like it. We have to change the story. That's sacrilegious, dude. That's freaking, that's heresy to me. Where it's like, come on, you had a great story in mind that you thought was great. Tell it. But now it's like, oh, we have to change because all of a sudden the audience doesn't like it. Aw, convenience. She has this line, and now we bring Tony back. But you were saying, please. I just wanted to call out that bullshit flaw.
So Riri gets her own comic sales, and they don't start off strong at all. They start off pretty weak. But, you know, being optimistic, you can chop that up to maybe being a new character that people aren't familiar with. Maybe it'll take some time to build up.
Sure.
I think that Riri was supposed to have at least a 12-issue run in the beginning. I don't think she made it that far. Her issue or her comic run was canceled early because her sales dipped to under 10,000 units in a month.
Fuck, dude. And that's over what, like, how much of a...
How many copies were sold?
Right. How many copies were sold in a month? In, like, which, like, in America alone, or, like, across the world, or...
I'm pretty sure it's North America.
North America? Okay,
These are North American.
Sure.
I'm not sure how many of these are. Yeah.
Still, though, even out of one country, less than 10K? Come on, dude.
And once again, you compare it to an average comic, like an average, you know, decent, strong-selling comic that'll hit at least 60.
Yeah.
10? So at that point, they had to cancel. Okay?
Yeah. 10
and
is
then,
laughable. I mean, is Riri even written about anymore? I mean, that's an ignorant question. I'm sorry to ask it, but I don't know sincerely. So here we are.
Yes, kind of an old, but I'll do it anyway. Old spoiler alert.
Sure.
Tony Stark is dead. He is now an AI.
Okay.
And
well, yeah, this I knew. Okay.
Yeah, and Riri Williams, she is, you know, kind of.
So they're still pushing through with it. In other words.
Yes, not only they're pushing through with it, Kevin, but here's kind of the thing that just makes me think that maybe Marvel will never get it until it's too late. But Riri is getting her, reportedly getting her own TV series on Disney Plus, and it's like, so out of all the characters out there, out of all the awesome stories and other characters you can pull from,
right?
You're going to take a character who literally cannot sell comics. You can't give her fucking comics away. People don't want Ironheart Comics.
Yeah.
But because, and I find this insulting to me.
Yeah.
But because she's a black girl, you're going to give her her own series based off of that strength alone. Listen, I never want a job simply because I'm black. I want it because I'm a fucking badass and I earned this spot. That will always be the case.
Let me ask a question here, brother.
Yeah.
Because I love the statement you just made. That was powerful. Would you be insulted if someone out there did give you a position just because of that?
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Because you're a black man?
Absolutely. And once again,
thought
guys,
so.
like that's not saying that I'm against affirmative action. The affirmative action, I think, not to get political, but that was definitely necessary because black people literally weren't being given an opportunity for employment. And so that at least allowed us to have opportunities for employment. What I'm talking about is, in this day and age, if me and Kevin go in, and pitch ideas, and his happens to be white, my idea for comic has to be black, and I found out that they pick mine just off the strength of the fact that I'm presenting a black character, I'm gonna feel some type of way about it. Because I want like if I made a comic, I wanted to sell because it's a fucking good story,
Right? Yeah.
not just because it's a black person. And and until Marvel realizes that, I don't know when things are going to get better, because that is literally what they're doing right now with Riri Williams. If you want Riri to be a strong character, because I sure as fuck do, I think that there needs to be way more black female leads in comics.
Yeah.
And too bad that Marvel just squandered it with Riri by not having faith with the creative obligation. They just made her a mini Iron Man. They made her derivative. They made her redundant.
Yeah.
Why take Riri when we have Tony Stark? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And so what they should do.
Why take Amadeus whenever we have daggum Bruce Banner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that's exactly the thing. It's like,
Man.
that's not what we want. We already have an Iron Man. Give us something else. We're not saying that we don't want diversity. Just give us something original.
Yeah.
That's really the point that comic readers are trying to get across to all these writers. But the problem is, they surround themselves with people who think the exact same way that they do, so nothing gets accomplished.
Yeah. And that's actually an interesting point you bring up. It's hard, but sometimes the humble pill needs to be taken, where you need to have a contradicting thought process in the room that's going to disagree with you. Because you said it well earlier. You said a cool little phrase. I want to go ahead and bounce that back at readers here and listeners. Readers, I wish. Wow, right?
Speaking into existence, yes.
Ooh, good vibes. But no, I mean, dude, if you just have a room full of yes men and yes women, then you're literally in the echo room. Does that sound familiar? But yeah, brother, I mean, that's why I'm happy to disagree with you sometimes.
Hell yeah.
Wait.
And like that, and like that's great. I mean, listen, like
Hell
if
yeah,
you guys,
dude. I mean, if you call me out and say, Kevin, that's a dumbass idea, I'm probably gonna have to rethink it. Like, well, was it a dumbass idea?
Right.
Nah, my idea was great.
it's like, sure, it bruises the ego, but think about it. Like, if you guys are, say you're starting a podcast, or say
Sure.
you're starting a comic, even whatever it is, if your co-creator has an issue, or if your co-creator thinks that we should go this direction, that should immediately tell you two things. One, they care enough and they're passionate enough to have their own ideas as to how to make something great. And two, that introduces an idea to you that maybe you haven't had before.
Amen.
You want that if you're in a creative position.
Yes.
That
That forces you to think harder. Yes.
Remember when we talked about Damon Lindelof when he made the Watchmen TV show? His hiring process. He didn't hire anybody who agreed with all of his ideas.
Yeah.
He left their asses at the door. He brought in people who disagreed with his concepts. He brought
that's
in people.
fucking genius, dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you need to do in the creative process.
Actually, I remember the thing that taught me this. It's gonna be sad. It's gonna advertise how much of a nerd I am, how much I love storytelling in general. But I remember I learned this lesson through an episode. Get this, of House MD. Okay.
Wow.
Now I loved that show growing up. I loved watching it. There was one episode. I don't remember what season, which episode, whatever. I don't follow it anymore. I know it's dead or whatever, but or they finished. Excuse me, different thing. But there was one episode where the main guy, House, was trying to hire a bunch of doctors, and he was trying to make a new team, and then by the end of the episode, there was this one other doctor who was worried that he wasn't going to get the position because he kept having different ideas than House. Like and House was the genius. He was the guy who was supposed to be modeled after Sherlock Holmes, the genius detective. And this guy instead, House, was the genius doctor, whatever. Well, by the end of the episode, House said, okay, I chose who I'm going to let go of and not hire, guaranteed, the guy he kept agreeing with. And the whole time, the focal point of that, plot point for the episode was focused on the doctor who kept disagreeing with House, and he's, dumbfounded. Why'd you do that? You guys were spitballing off each other all daggum day. You were finishing each other's sentences, and then they said that exact same thing, where House was like, well, I'm gonna let you say it for me. And then the other guy who's been agreeing with him and being able to finish his sentences and have the same ideas was like, he doesn't need another yes man. He doesn't need another doctor who thinks the same way as him. That's not how you save more patients. And it's like, well, young like 12, 13-year-old dumb me was just like, oh, cool. Yeah. And that stuck out to me because it's so true,
It's the truth. And unfortunately, it's really ironic, Kevin.
Sure.
There's no diversity in these writers' rooms. That's the most fucked up thing about this entire episode, is that these comic writers don't have any diverse thinking. Like, how fucking ironic is that?
I'm gonna need a minute, brother. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've heard. Oh my gosh, dude.
But it's true. It is.
Really? So
they all think the same. How do you think something like New Warriors gets approved?
Okay. Well, we saw the guy who introduced New Warriors.
Daniel Kibblesmith. I would never forget his name.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
It's not.
Wow.
The guy who said that the original New Warriors scared him as a kid.
He needed someone to pick on him. No offense, Daniel. A little. I'm sorry. No offense, for real. Fuck, dude. Alright, I'm sorry. I'll put my headset back on. I was just like, man, I can't. That's dumb. So, you bring up a fair point, and now I'm kind of curious to actually see. Like, I want to be a fly on the wall for one of these meetings when they try to create this next new, most diverse idea out there. Excuse me. I'd be curious to see that, because when you first said that, I imagined just a room full of like middle-aged white men who are sitting there trying to write these stories about this cool Mexican woman. What's her name?
America Chavez.
America Chavez. Thank you. And she's.
Oh, brother, that reminds me. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, please.
It was I think just a few short months ago, America was going to get like I guess a new comic run, and the artist, he had the cover drawn up for her. And he got ripped to shreds by his supposed, comrades, by his co-workers, by his writers, because how dare you sexualize her like that? How dare she look that way? God forbid that a woman looks good. God forbid that a guy looks like fucking Thor. It's like it's okay for these things to.
I was about to say that might explain why I didn't hear anything about that. I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Yes, because I haven't heard that name for a long time.
Oh yeah, she was another one that kind of bombed because, well, you can probably guess. But no, until they finally realized that the problem lies with them, not with the consumers.
Yeah.
Here's the problem: like if we sold anything and the consumer said we don't like it, wouldn't our first thought be, okay, we need to figure out how to fix this?
Yeah, no, you and I would be like, wait, you don't?
Right.
Oh.
Like, if
well,
a homie...
What do you not like about it?
if any of you homies ever write in and say, you don't like something about the show, we're not going to fucking throw you off. We're going to be like, okay, how do we fix this?
Do you remember? Oh, great example. Another teaching opportunity from me. Something that was very humbling for me, homies. Early on in the podcasting career, I had made... It was a simple mistake. It was... But it was something very important because this is a work of passion. This is a work where I get the opportunity to learn a lot more about the comic book industry, where I get to write, really read deep art about these things. You're probably remembering what I'm talking about now. Stop reading my brain. Where I made a mistake naming an author who was not an author of...
an artist.
An artist of a certain book, yeah. And one of the homies, I was grateful for this homie. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. Shout out to you. Who sent in a message like, come on, man. You're in charge of a comic podcast. What are you doing? You're making simple mistakes like this? Like, really? Come on, bruh. And I was like, yeah, no, remember, like, the episode thereafter, I was like, bro, I got to stop this real quick. I need to make a humble apology. That was a great moment.
Right.
Because I needed correcting.
Like, imagine if you had, just like, if you don't like the podcast and fucking get lost. Like, if you, that's the equivalent.
Or listener account.
Right.
Yeah.
God damn.
No, that ain't my job. I mean, shoot, I try to stop myself now and try to better prepare and know ahead of time, like, which artist, author, team combo is in charge of whatever. But we need that mentality. We need that back in, the artists and the executives' offices.
Yes.
Before anything decides to hit the press.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But remember in earlier thoughts, that we mentioned just briefly was, you said something along the lines of, we don't want these companies to have their publishing rights sold, and I was like, maybe we do.
Yeah. And, okay. Let's expound on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the reason I said that is, if let's say that Marvel or that Disney does finally decide we just want the intellectual properties for these characters, fuck the publishing, and they decide to, best case scenario, sell the publishing versus just stopping it. So let's say they decide to sell the publishing rights to someone else.
Well, I mean, it is the potential to make more money, even if you sell it to another company where they have to give some of their profits back to you as Disney, That's still more money potentially in your pocket rather than just getting rid of it and shutting it down,
The way I look at it is like this. Whoever buys it has to know that the comic book industry is a difficult nut to crack. Yeah. Whoever buys that is going to be it's going to be a company who probably gives a damn about comics.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you have a new team. You bring in, you get someone to buy that company, to buy the publishing rights to Marvel. They get to, now if they want to, they can cherry pick which writers they want to keep. They can cherry pick who they want. You know what? No, I like that new writer from Valiant. I'm going to bring him. I like the new writer from Image. I want to bring them in. I like that new independent writer. I want to bring him in.
Yeah.
I like that artist. So forth and so on. If DC or Marvel in particular gets sold to a company, a publisher who loves comics, who is passionate about it, because I don't see anyone else buying them besides someone who loves comics.
Right.
That opens up the door for improvement. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be a long-term thing, but regardless of how comics improve, it's going to be long-term.
Yeah.
This, in my mind, would just be the best-case scenario of a worst-case scenario. So, yeah, I don't see it being necessarily a bad thing if Marvel or DC sells their publishing rights to another company.
That's an interesting thought process. That's food for thought,
No.
Yeah. Best case scenario, it's the right company, and like you're saying, with the right passion in place, and with the right ability to say, "Oh, okay, well, I bought the company now, so hey, Neil Gaiman, come on back from Marvel's team. Why don't you come on over here and we'll get some shit done?" Yeah, I'd dig that.
Oh yeah,
I'd buy that.
Oh yeah. Now the absolute worst case scenario is that they just shut down publishing altogether.
That would suck.
Yeah, they don't. What that would mean is that they would probably release maybe they still have writers and artists on hand. Is what that would still mean, but floppies would definitely slowly stop. And what we get is we still get things like omnis, because omnis are just giant collected reprints of books that are already in existence. So thankfully for people like me, we still get omnis
for a while.
Probably for a long while, because I mean, like,
right. Well, either way, it would eventually come to a halt if there's no more fuel in the fire to build an omni out of.
Like, even if publishing rights ceased, the theory now and the thought in the hive mind is that they would still produce comics. Like when we say ceased, like it doesn't mean just like there's no more comics ever. What it means is that like we probably won't get we probably won't get any more Deathstroke, but we'll still get Batman. We probably won't get any more Constantine, but we'll still get Superman. In other words, the big money maker.
They'll pick and choose.
Yes, they'll pick and choose. They'll cherry pick. But the number of issues and comics that would be released would be drastically reduced. Drastically. So
that's some shit.
It is, yeah. And once again, that's the absolute worst case scenario.
Knock on wood.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. Yeah. Okay.
There's another point here that I definitely want to talk about as well.
Sure. Yeah, because we were on that one for a hot minute, but that was such a heavy one. The political nature, that comics are trying to take. Yeah.
The next issue I want to talk about is event fatigue, and this is one that comic book fans are just they're fatigued of it. They're tired of it.
You don't say.
Yes. Huh. So, event fatigue, guys, is when you're reading a line of comics and then you get to a point where, oh shit's about to get real. You're reading X-Men and then I'm just spitballing here, and then Apocalypse comes back in a big bad way and he threatens the entire Marvel universe, or Thanos comes back and now he's even bigger and better than ever, and it takes the entirety of the Marvel universe or the entirety of the DC universe to come together to stop this threat. These often make for great reads. That's why we get them. The problem is, between Marvel and DC, you probably get 6 big mega events a year. And that's just too goddamn much. That is event fatigue. So, for example, Kevin, let's look at, I have the Age of Apocalypse omnibus sitting right here.
Okay, yeah.
Which, by the way, guys, that omnibus is no longer out of print. I got really lucky when I found it. I'm really happy I have it. But Age of Apocalypse was, I'm not going to say it was one of the last big great events, but it was, it's a prime example of one. Same thing with Infinite Crisis Omni or Final Crisis.
Right.
So what these are events. These are these big moments where the entirety of the universe comes together. So now the reason why these are good is because in short term, they definitely drive up sales.
Yeah, they're very interesting. Yeah, I want to know what happens when the whole universe clashes.
Yes. The problem is that you end up having to collect 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different runs of comics to get the entirety of a story.
Yeah.
And that is not only time consuming, but it's money consuming as well, and it's tiresome.
And I know as a comic industry, you'd probably be saying, well, yeah, that's the goal. I want to keep making $1. But how many of your fans are going to get frustrated at that constant idea of, wait, so I just dropped, $69.99 on one omnibus. Now you're saying I have to buy this other book and that other book and then like 8 more books to complete this storyline so I can actually know what happened?
And I think
that's a lot, Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's actually like the best case scenario is if you're just patient like me, then you just buy the Omni, so you have the whole story there. You don't have to worry about anything.
True.
But for like the people that like to buy single issue comics, like a lot of times they're just fucked because now their pull list is damn near doubled depending on the event. And then that's also including like, what if they don't like the event halfway through? Did they just stop halfway through? Well, chances are they're going to want to finish the event at least. Event fatigue is terrible. It's because, one, you're hemorrhaging the customers.
Yeah.
And 2, it's going to get to a point, and it's been happening, where they just don't care that much anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
And on top of that, you have the issue where if the customers don't care that much anymore, then obviously they're not going to buy that much anymore. Your events don't mean as much to them. There's too many of these events that are happening now, and that's been a major issue that a lot of comic fans have been mentioning. And I gotta say, I'm inclined to agree. There used to be a time where an event would be special because that was the event. Like, especially going back in the day, like you look at Secret Wars from like 1984.
That was a great
Yes.
example. Well, first off, that was Marvel's first ever Prime example.
It was.
Yeah.
It's the very first. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's their first.
I mean, granted, it was an ill-fated attempt at making freaking toys, but
Turned out to be an amazing comic, though.
yeah.
Yeah, and like so in that regard, Marvel knocked it out of the park. And then like you look at DC around the same time, they made Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that was another major hit. And so now both Marvel and DC are like, oh man, like
Yeah, these ultimate multi-team clashes are pretty awesome.
these things are
Yeah.
pretty freaking good.
I mean, another example, dude. We just got done talking about the Injustice omnibus here, Volume 1, years 1 through 3. That was awesome. It was a pretty awesome, phenomenal read,
Yes.
And that was the DC Universe plus, It was a
Right.
whole ton of things. Yeah.
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 The benefit to Injustice though is that if you collected floppies, you would just go, I want Injustice issue 1, 2, 3. You won't have to say, I want Injustice, the Resistance Wars, Deathstroke edition. Like you don't have to buy all that because like they're all just in linear fashion.
Yeah.
Whereas if you wanted, all of Infinite Crisis, I want pre-Crisis issue 1 OMAC Wars. We there's such specificities.
I'm having a hard
of it
time
all.
deciding whether or not you're making all this up as you go, or those are like actual comic names and you just like.
That first one I made up.
I thought so. That first one sounded filibustered. But okay, yeah.
And so that's kind of the thing about these events is that readers just wants them that make them feel special again, and the way you make them feel special again is by not doing one a month. I'm being facetious, but yeah, don't do so many. So,
That's fair. That's fair. It's kind of like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. If every event was a world-ending event, then what? Yeah, but
right.
that's fair.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea here is that both teams are guilty of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I will say that that's a great example. That's another awesome bullet point that you have to your list here. That one does sound much more like a larger issue for your die-hard, very passionate collecting fans. I will add another leaflet to that real quick, where I thought what you are going to define event fatigue as, and this is what I was prepared for, was a repetition of events. Secret Wars 2 or Civil War 2 or another Infinite Crisis. But wait, didn't we just literally have an Infinite Crisis where, wait. Infinite means for like, wait, what? How can there be more than one?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, we're just repeating the same things in a different storytelling way with new characters maybe. But it's not necessarily a better or even a worthy follow-up. I thought that's what you were going to mean by that, which I would paint as another potential issue, maybe loosely related to that topic, because that's a great one.
Yeah, I would argue that they're almost one and the same. I mean, because if you have one, then chances are you have the other. If you have too many events, then chances are they're overlapping or they're very similar to one that precedes it.
Or they're just lacking in the one that precedes it, Like, for instance, some time ago we covered Civil War 2. That wasn't as good as Civil War,
Not nearly. And you know what? And like that comes from like Brian Michael Bendis is not America's favorite writer right now. He people are not liking his work, and every great writer tends to go through that kind of phase where they just kind of write dog shit for a few years.
Yeah.
And Brian Michael Bendis is kind of in the midst of that right now. But one of the last comics he wrote for Marvel, like you said, was Civil War 2. And if I had to be his lawyer, I would say in his defense, I believe that he was instructed by Marvel to give them another Civil War. I believe that it feels too shoehorned in for it to be organic.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it felt more fabricated. It wasn't this awesome, great story. It was just we're going to curtail it and jump on the bandwagon of this first awesome, great story and use its weight and power and influence and fandom to sell the second repetition or this attempt at a sequel for the same story, And in this case, unfortunately, for Civil War II, it turned out to be wah wah. That sucked, you know.
Turned out to be a big kind of a flop. Like most people in general don't care that much for Civil War II. You know, I don't know if you remember this, Kevin, in our Civil War II breakdown, which you guys can definitely catch on the podcast. It's in our archives. But I remember one thing that I said that was just so telling and ironic was that I said, for people who don't regularly read Captain Marvel, this was her big coming out moment where people could finally be like, oh, wow, so this is what this character is all about.
So you would think priority would be, let's hit the nail on the head here and make this a great story.
Yes, let's make this a great story. Instead, it's a very contrived story that paints Carol Danvers as just a massive asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't do anyone any favors. It painted her as an asshole. It painted Steve Rogers as incapable. It painted... I mean, like, it did nobody any favors.
It did Tony really weird, too. Like, Tony was all over the fucking place, dude. Tony Stark,
So here's the thing, Kevin, like, and this is also almost like a note hinting on our previous topic, but, like, if you take, like, you know, some of our core Avengers and look at where they were versus how they are now, you know, Tony Stark is traditionally he's kind of a drunkard and he's a little bit of a womanizer. You think that current Marvel writer is going to stand for that? Bam, motherfucker's dead. Thor is this godly looking man who is a god. He is this white skinned, blonde haired Adonis of a guy, just fucking amazing.
And then they downgrade him, and
well, that's not fair. There should be a woman equivalent. So let's get him the fuck out of here, and have someone else step up, and a female to take his place.
Yeah.
Captain America. They literally made Captain America into a fucking Nazi.
That was dumb. So the Lady Thor thing I can defend because it's like, yeah, okay, I can understand the value in showing that example, and maybe the right fangirl looks at that and thinks, oh wow, that's really cool, awesome, okay, you want a fan, great. But turning Captain America to a Nazi, dude, I know a couple of my British friends who are just like, that was dumb as fuck. What America's flipping their balls over this, and all like. It's so funny because actually some of my British friends were talking about at the time, like, yeah, I called that. Yeah, that made sense. And then all of America's like, wait, what? You know, but it was such a weird thing to do with the writing. It was like,
yeah. And Hulk, they also killed. Thankfully, he got put into capable hands and left to his own devices. Talking about Al Ewing, the guy who wrote Immortal Hulk. So definitely thank you, Al, for what you've done with Hulk.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
That's fun to say. Yeah.
But no, so event fatigue is definitely one thing that is hurting the comic industry more than it's helping. People used to get excited about it. Now people are just like, oh, another one?
Oh, another one.
Like, you know, get DJ Khaled to comment on it.
I could just imagine him wait, in line at a Comic-Con. You know how they have the question panels and it's like a mic on this end, that end, and it's back and forth. I could just imagine like surprise reveal. He's at this mic waiting at like the like 20th question or something, asking about this big omnibus that's about to come out, and the writers go, oh yeah, sure, we're gonna reveal that real quick. Actually, we're gonna have Civil War 3 happen, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be this awesome event. Guess who's gonna be a part of it? Blank and blank. And then DJ Khaled's just there like, another one. Yeah. Anywho, poking fun. Shout out to the cool DJ, which I'm not.
This one here kind of goes into something that we talked about a little bit, and this is more about the demographic, but
sure.
A lot of comic readers now feel as if comics are written for kids, and
that's a weird one, huh?
I mean, like,
I gotta
think about it like this:
yeah.
how many new comics have you read?
Okay, fair.
And yeah, and that's kind of the thing of it. Like a lot of these new comics are almost kind of written for like a YA audience.
I didn't think about it in that mentality, but I don't disagree with it because I look at the floppies that are available at my local comic shop, and it's strange things. It's things that don't make sense until I realize that movie was popular. When I start thinking about which movie this comic is supposed to be representing and how popular and how well that movie sold, it makes all the sense I needed to.
Right.
For instance, I got the perfect example for you. Are you ready for this bullshit?
Lay it on me.
Old Man Quill. I was upset when I read that. Like, how dare you? Old Man only belongs to Old Man Logan here, damn it. And then it's like, I read that and it's like, why the fuck are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. And then I realized, oh, Peter Quill, Guardians of the Galaxy, super popular. I even bought the vinyl. Oh. So I don't disagree with that. The new comics, and especially like the floppies and like the more easily accessible and purchasable ones, are mayhaps for children.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned something that I forgot to mention for the event fatigue, being that event fatigue also stops people from buying new comics because, God forbid, you pick up in issue 3 of any event, you're gonna be like, what the wonder fuck is going on here?
I'm gonna need a thicker previously on section here. I'm gonna need about 2 issues of previously. Right?
Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it really is intimidating because
that's a good word choice for it, actually. Because actually, I remember jokingly off subject a little bit, just a breath of fresh air. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine when I was in Utah, and we were walking I think to a classroom or something together, and we were talking about the Final Fantasy series, which is a really creative and really interesting series because it's such a strange artwork and storytelling, and it becomes fascinating in that regard. And one of the things that he said to me, and I'll never forget it because at the time I was just like, I never thought about it, but that almost like invites me to believe it. He was wondering, so I never wanted to play a Final Fantasy game because I thought I needed to go back to Final Fantasy 1 to understand what the fuck was going on. He didn't say that. He didn't curse, but either way, it was the same thing where it's like, and I think at the time, Final Fantasy 12 or 10 was a really big thing. It was back in 09.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. Someone help me. But oh, you're thinking about it right now. Yeah.
I think that's 12.
12? That would make sense. The 3 women, I think, were the cover because 10 is
Oh no, that'd be 10-2. That's a spinoff of 10. Where you get like all the single ladies on the cover.
I'm sorry, I forgot my line. Someone show me the script, please. I don't know this. I forgot that existed.
There was a Final Fantasy 10-2 and 10-3, I believe. Yeah, with I think Yuna, Lulu, and Riku.
Wow, Square Enix, guys, come. Anyways, but yeah, no. But it's like the same mentality was like, I don't want to pick up any Final Fantasy because I don't want to have to go back to the first and know the story. Luckily, they're all disconnected. They're all separate entities, unless you play Dissidia. That's a word. But yeah, you were saying, because it's like, luckily that's not the case. You don't have to pick up all the issues. They're separate stories. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So a lot of comic readers, they are saying that they feel a lot of the new comics are more written more so for children than adults. And they're not saying that they don't think kid comics or young adult comics are bad. They're saying that they don't feel like there's a lot written for their demographic. Once again, guys, you have to remember, majority of comic readers are well into adulthood.
Yeah.
And the issue is that like they grew up with comics, and to an extent, you kind of expect them to, in some fashion, grow up with you. Peter Parker did that, for example. Peter Parker was a kid for years, and then he finally turned 30. And then he finally got married.
14, 14, 15, 14, 16, 13, 14, 14, 14, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 17, 30.
Thankfully, it wasn't like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But I was going along with it, yeah.
But you saw Peter Parker grow up. Like you read him as he grew up into a man, and then he gets married and he becomes a school teacher, and you see him grow up, and like it makes you feel like really good as a comic reader because you're like, I've grown up with Peter Parker.
Hell yeah.
And there's something special about that.
Yeah.
Now I'm just using him as an example.
Sure. It's a good example.
Yeah. But like if you go and pick up a lot of new comics now, a lot of them on the shelf, are written for age demographics, maybe a generation or two younger than you. And I'm not saying that you can't enjoy those, because you definitely can. But there's not that same connection. There's a bit of a disconnect.
I agree with that, brother. I do. Because it is kind of weird. And potentially, let's make fun of the social situation real quick. Let's paint the picture.
Yes.
When you're in a comic book store and you pick up this issue, which clearly the artwork, the font choice, the wordplay, the positioning of the heroes and everything like that is overly animated, and it looks childish. It looks immature. It looks like Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans the cartoon.
Right.
Yeah, right? Teen Titans Go is purely for children.
That's a rough comparison, brother. Ooh.
It is. But it's necessary for the sake of the truth, okay? So Teen Titans was a bit of an edgier cartoon and pretty cool. Teen Titans Go, clearly not the case. Do not watch Titans children, because that's a vast difference. That's going to be very graphic. If you're into that, cool, go to you. But I digress. But it's like you pick up an issue like Teen Titans Go and present it to a counter as a 30-plus-year-old man. That's weird. That's like you gotta get a look or two, And I applaud you buying a book. I like people who buy books. Hell yeah, you're instantly much more respectable and cool in my mind. I waste too much money on books. What can I say? But here we are,
You saying I waste too much money on books, Kevin?
Oh, no, brother. You're good, because I borrow your books.
You want to
and
fight?
I read them too.
Okay.
Yeah, I read your books too. Come on. Just don't look for the ones you're missing. But yeah, no. I mean, think about it. Like, if you were a grown man picking up like a comic issue of like Teen Titans Go,
you're not wrong.
Yeah, that could be weird.
Yeah.
And there is a fandom for this out there. Here's another example of a comic that's clearly written for a child. I forgot the name of it. Wow, I just brain farted. My Pony? Is that the thing?
My Little Pony?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, I didn't know there was a comic for that.
I would imagine there is. I don't
Probably.
know. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a comic for freaking Borderlands. Come on,
Yeah. Oh, well, bronies are a thing, like grown men who are into My Little Pony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so obviously there's an audience for people of whatever age group to be involved with something that was clearly written for a much younger audience, but that does nevertheless off-put a population of your audience. The people who do walk into the comic store and maybe pick up that same issue, just another copy of Teen Titans Go, picks it up and goes, what the fuck is this? What happened to my characters? What happened to Robin? Why is he throwing a pie at Cyborg or some dumb thing? No, we're done.
And I guess I do want to say this also, because there is a lot of truth to this. You should often read something that doesn't appeal to you, just so you can see things from a different perspective. But that's not what we're talking about here tonight.
That's like another theme of tonight, really. Invite a different perspective, because we were talking about that same damn thing not 30 minutes ago. Yeah.
But just on the topics of like comics and maturity,
sure.
Like we've mentioned at the top of the podcast, most of what I buy are omnis, and omnis are giant collections of reprinted comics. So you'll get like an entire run of Blackest Night. I'm cheating, or you get like the entire,
or another run.
Like you just get a giant run of a character or the entirety of an event, and that's called an omnibus for maybe those of you who were curious. But like the most recent two I got was the Wolverine omnibus and the Hellblazer omnibus. Those are those two recent ones. And the thing about those two is that they were written both around the late 80s and early 90s is when these two comics were written, or these two omnibus were written. And these are both very, very mature comics. Like, with the exception of like Wolverine's first appearance, this is all like pretty mature, pretty mature stuff.
Kind of like opening scenes of Logan versus
any other appearance in X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Wolverine's first appearance though, like in the comics is, it is what it is. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay,
it's good stuff, but it's it's just very very dated is all. But
okay.
everything else in the comic though is very much mature in content. And once again with Hellblazer, Garth Ennis, I don't need to say anything more about that.
I was about to say, you put the name
know.
Garth Ennis beside something,
Yeah.
I know it's instantly going to be rated R to X. And it's probably going to be pretty awesome, but I probably don't want to let a child read it,
Yeah, no, definitely
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, Daddy, watch this man summoning the devil.
Boom. Why aren't you in bed? Let's go to bed.
But both have been amazing reads, by the way. But
Good. I was about to say, Hellblazer looks like it's been dope, dude. Hell yeah.
But the point I'm getting at here is that like these comics were written over 30 years ago, essentially, and with that they both carry like these mature themes. Like we know that these are comic books, and comic books are traditionally thought of as things that are childish or immature, but these are actually very mature reads, and there's a lot of comics out there that are very mature reads. We just don't want to take a step of regression backwards to the point where people think that comics are once again just a thing for children only.
Right. If anything, I invited the idea of a balance,
Absolutely.
where you don't force a demographic to reading only certain superheroes, like your America Chavez, your Kamala Khan, your
Man,
your
I
Wanda
fell,
and Vision, whatever,
I fell in love with Wonder Woman, especially while I was reading the Infinite Crisis Army. There's a female writer named Gail Simone who did a tremendous job with the character in Infinite Crisis. And then the same writer, Gail Simone, she wrote a bunch of great shit. She wrote a group called the Secret Six. Took a group of characters that I shouldn't give a fuck about and made that one of my favorite chunks of the book. Couldn't get enough of it.
Okay.
Gail Simone, she's the writer who I think she even penned Batgirl for the New 52, one of the hottest series for New 52. Gail Simone.
I was about to say, I know you even purchased the Wonder Woman omnibus.
She wrote this Wonder Woman omnibus right here that came out, I think, pre-New 52, and this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And now this is the Gail Simone that I know, the one who's a fantastic writer, and I'm glad that she's writing such strong and important female characters. She's fucking amazing, and I love this book.
Okay.
I can't speak to any of her, political ideologies or whatnot. All I'm saying is that like I haven't encountered a beating over the head from reading her stories.
No.
She's just been an amazing read.
Yeah.
So like,
You're good, you're good.
Yeah, and like I'm a grown ass black man, and I can't get enough of reading this Wonder Woman book because it's a great fucking story.
Grown ass black man.
In America, no felonies.
I'm sorry. Wait. Let's start this over. Start this over. If this is going to be an unofficial endorsement, I want it done right. Okay.
All right.
I need you to Vanessa White the book.
Gotcha.
Okay. Go ahead. Let me see the practice. Come on, Vanessa White. Give me the face. Hey, there he is. Okay. Now go ahead and say that last statement one more time.
I'm a grown ass black man.
That's all you said?
I'm a full bred Negro.
No. Fuck, man.
But no. But the only thing I'm getting at here is that if it's great writing, then it's great writing, and there's no denying that. So definitely read what appeals to you. But the overarching thesis of this section was that make sure that there's comics that are written for everybody.
Yeah, representation for any age.
Yeah. It should never look like it favors just one demographic.
No. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy my characters being able to entertain any of us.
Also like I think about it like on the off chances that I have kids one day. Though, first of all, those poor forgotten souls.
Why are they forgotten?
They'll find out.
You're sitting there reading a comic. One pulls on your sleeve. Dad, can we eat? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't make that joke. I'm sorry.
The fuck with me with your snotty hands. You know how much this book cost me? This book is out of print.
There it is. There's the cue I know.
What I'm getting at though is like if I ever, for some odd reason had kids one day.
If you do have kids, I'm going to make them listen to this episode.
It's like I want comics for them to read. know.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna force it on them, but I would definitely present it to them and see if it's something that they take to or not. So yeah, I definitely want there to be comics for them to read and enjoy, you know, as children and as young adults, and, you know, and once they hit 15, all right, here's fucking Punisher by Garth Ennis, or like give them the heavy shit then.
Exactly.
Uh,
Oh,
here's-
Punisher! I've never read any Punisher. Ooh.
You know what? I guess that's an appropriate age. I was about to say if I let my children reach age 15 without reading Punisher, then maybe I failed as a parent.
Without reading Punisher by age 15?
Yes.
Okay. So what age would you slowly leak that into their life?
I don't know. I start off with some of the easier Punisher stuff.
Okay. Namely,
like maybe-
because Punisher Max is not easier.
No. Punisher Max is like I feel like I'm too young to read Punisher Max. I am not mature enough for this content. No.
Right.
It's just Garth Ennis being fucking gross and blowing shit up as he does. But no, maybe Punisher War Journals. No. War Zone. We go with Punisher War Zone.
Okay. I was about to say I got. I think I got a copy of Punisher Warzone over there. Actually.
Yeah.
So.
I would show them Punisher's more, I don't want to say cartoony nature, but more of his comic book side. Anything that's Punisher with the white boots, I would let my children read.
That's the perfect example.
Yeah.
There you go. Because that's
That's going to be the Punisher that's going to be, you know, going around with Spider-Man or Daredevil. You know, it's going to be a more friendlier version.
I have one over there that I was debating, but then I thought, no, that's another example of like, that's the medium man. That's the one I would have read in between White Boot Punisher and Garth Ennis Punisher. It's the Punisher, Wolverine, and Ghost Rider Darkheart.
Oh,
That's a cool story, and I would invite that to them, and let that be the introduction of like complexity. You know, that'd be interesting.
You know,
now
this
I feel
is
like
almost
this is an experiment.
Right. It's almost like a whole nother episode.
It
It's
kind
like,
of is.
It's like, guys,
We need children on the episode with us.
If the comic book has Garth Ennis' name written on it, they don't get to read it until they can pay taxes. Like that should be a general rule of thumb. So it doesn't matter if it's The Boys, if it's Preacher, if it's Hellblazer, if it's Punisher.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're right.
You know, like
but you ain't wrong.
I would say like when they're able to drive, or maybe just a little bit before then, let them read a little bit of Mark Miller. You can let them read Civil War. That's a Mark Miller one that, you know,
That's a good one.
isn't
Maybe
dangerous.
never mind. I was about to say maybe the Mark Miller Wolverine book that I have, but not yet. That's like
Old
you've
Man
been driving
Logan's
for
a little, you know.
that's when you turn 18. Yeah, that's when you turn 18. There you go.
You know what? I would introduce him to Old Man Logan. That's a good.
I mean, come on. If
story
you're 18, you're old enough to go fight for the country. Then,
No, I mean, I would let him read that before then.
Okay.
You know.
There you go.
Ultimates would be a good one for them to read too.
I mean, that's the age group when we got into Ultimates. You know? So yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
But no, that we're just kind of spitballing here now.
Yeah, at this point we're just having fun because you're right. This is almost a whole nother episode. This I might have to chalk this up on the board.
Yes.
On the not chalkboard.
So let's talk about one more thing here, and then
Sure.
we can take it all home here. And this is really just kind of to get your opinion on something. So
Please.
there's a website called comicbookreport.com. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it.
Maybe.
They released an article saying that they think the comic book industry, should end single issue comics and start focusing on trade paperbacks because they feel like that's the future. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin? How do you feel about that statement?
So, in regard to everything we literally have been talking about up to this point, in the idea of trying to grow the audience, in the idea of what type of distribution options are out there and who they're primarily for, I feel that would be a dumb idea and potentially one of the first nails in the coffin of the publishing industry if things go down such a dark, negative, and pessimistic viewpoint. In other words, the death of the publication industry. Because the floppies, like we just finished fucking talking about, that's a great idea to drag in and to magnetize and to attract a younger audience. that's the thing with the colorful covers and the cool, recognizable characters that you know with unique variations to pull in the kids that just watched their movie, you know? And they're not going to be able to afford the big old thick book like, oh, I need to, I need to go cut how many lawns to go buy The Blackest Night? How many lawns do I need to go cut to buy,
To be fair, they say replace with trade paperbacks.
Nevertheless, we just talked about how high those prices are going even for those, For even these bad boys here, it's like, I mean, I applaud the idea if it means I get more trade paperbacks, That's okay. That's, at least I'm getting something for losing something, A little alchemy there, give and take. But I will say this, though, you are cutting off potential audience. Again,
you're cutting off your main lifeline, because people who buy floppies make up vast majority of the comic book consumers. People like me that buy trades and hardcovers, we're growing, but we're not nearly as big as the group of consumers who buy floppies.
First off, you're one of the worst kind of comic consumers. Think about it. Well, actually, you're a pseudo. You're a mix. You're like the better of the worst. Because you're the asshole who waits and buys the big omnis rather than continues making the same mistake that you used to make in your youth, where you buy the trade paperbacks until you get all of them, then you buy the omni of them. Like, you'll keep making that mistake.
I mean, I think in that regard, I'm a great consumer because I'm double dipping.
I'm saying you're not double dipping anymore. You're the guy who's like, no, you won't get my money until you give me the omni. You used to make that double dipping thing, But you get what I'm saying. But you should double dip more so I can get the trade paperbacks, because I got some trade paperbacks. See, no, I'm the worst kind of consumer. Let's be truthful here. I'm the asshole in the room. That's me.
But no, I wholeheartedly agree with your sentiments. Like, even as somebody like me who doesn't buy floppies, it's a terrible idea to get rid of single issue comics. Yeah. Like, my other homies who collect single issue comics, it's like we still have, discussions, and we still talk about like the same stories. We just read them differently and at different times. Yeah. Like, I look at it this way. I would burn something to the ground if comics released like a statement saying that they'll no longer release omnis or trade paperbacks, and now they will only release things in single issue comics. You just now have isolated me as a customer, and you've gotten rid of me because I'm just supposed to start over my entire collection now with floppies. Yep. It's the same thing if they got rid of floppies. You can't get rid of floppies, and it's not. I'm not saying that. They're trying to say that floppies are antiquated now, and that they're. Yes, I believe that floppies are more consumable in trade paperback form. Yeah. A lot of times, just reading one issue, you don't know if you like a story or not. I get that, but floppies are cheaper for people who are dipping their toe into the industry. Floppies have kept the industry alive more so than omnis or hardcovers or trades. Floppies are what most of the long-term consumers go to. So to get rid of that would be crazy. Honestly, if you want to get rid of floppies, you're gonna have to wait until numbers dip way low and like our entire generation dies out. Then maybe. Then maybe.
That's a big maybe.
The other question that people are presenting is, do you think we can just do strictly digital? And we all collectively say, fuck no. No, you can't just do strictly digital.
Do you remember the sticky note we had on the old apartment wall of a Stan Lee quote?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. Go ahead and give it to the homies. All right. Let's preach that one out there a little bit.
Yes. Oh, yeah. To the late, great Stan the Man Lee. This is a rough quotation or roundabout, but when asked about the rising sale of digital comics and if he thought that digital comics would replace physical issues, Stan Lee replied with something along the lines of, no, not at all. Comics are like boobs. They're fun to see on screen, but they're much better to hold in your hands. And that was the perfect analogy.
Right.
I cannot think of a better way to end this episode than on a Stan Lee quote, because that's just, I mean, he hit the nail on the head with that.
He did. He totally did. Actually, that is a plethora statement that really sums up the idea of this episode so well.
Yes.
You know, it is much better to hold the comics in your hands.
It is,
ladies and gentlemen. That's a flag. I mean, I'm comfortable. I'm good.
You know, I feel like we've discussed a lot here tonight, and
we really did. Yeah. This got way in depth, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. This is what this episode needed to be.
Yeah.
And I hope that all you homies have gotten something out of this, and hopefully, like, if you guys agree with us, great, fantastic. Let us know. If you disagree with us, also let us know. We're really curious to hear your thoughts on this matter too. Like, do you guys collect comics? If so, what type do you collect? Who do you collect? And where do you think the state of the comic book industry is going? We want to know.
Yeah. Especially if you happen to know some awesome stuff, or you can think of something that we just didn't think to mention or something like that. Of course, we'd always be, super happy to know. We'll give you a shout out. And we're going to talk about that shit. We want to know too, So, hell yeah. Brother, this was stupid fun.
This was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, guys. So we cannot thank you guys enough for listening in and for being our homies, and for continuing to support us. We do truly, truly appreciate that. And this was one episode that we're really looking forward to, but the rest of the month is also stacked. Next week, man, should we go ahead and tell them what we're doing next week?
Go ahead, brother.
Absolutely.
Please and thank you.
So next week, guys, we will be talking. Well, this is going to be like a potentially a new series that we'll be doing on a regular
started
basis.
Research on it today.
Yes. So if you guys like this, then next week after the episode airs, let us know. But we'll be talking about what went wrong with the Inhumans television show.
Yep.
And so right now we're watching the single season of television that it is. And next week we're going to discuss the show, maybe like the good and the bad, and really what went wrong and why we think it.
And why there's only one season.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the series idea is what went wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to double check it and make sure that like nobody else has already done something like that or called that.
What?
So if there is already, if that name's already taken, then we'll call it something else. But regardless, we're doing that. And if that goes well, then we're going to continue to do that with different series or movies or what have you.
Yeah.
We think it'll be a lot of fun.
We'll have to think of a good general name. Yeah, because what went wrong means that something had to have actually gone wrong.
That's true.
Decisively.
Right. That's
a little weird. Maybe we'll come back at you. We'll think of something like that.
We'll call it What the Fuck Happened.
Can we publish this? All of our representation.
Right.
You cannot. I highly disregard this idea.
Oh man. Okay.
Either way, here we are.
But that is all we have for now, guys.
Hell yeah.
But we will be back again, guys. So we'll continue our run on the Harley Quinn series. For those of you who watch the DC animated films, sometime here in the near future, we will be watching and reviewing Justice League Dark Apocalypse War as well. That is the ending of the DC animated films in the New 52 universe they've established, starting with Flashpoint Paradox. So that 16 movie run has now come to a close, and we'll be discussing that as well. Looking forward to that. There's a lot of fun things.
So real quick, one more time, I think it'd be appropriate for this episode, especially for you to do this, but one more time, let's go ahead and give a shout out to the comic vending that you choose to use, which would best support your comic book industry.
Absolutely, guys. So I primarily buy my comics from two websites, InStockTrades.com and CheapGraphicNovels.com. Those two sites get you the best rates on comic books. Right now, because we didn't even talk about this, but because Diamond Distributors temporarily shut down, prices on comics.
Actually, that was part of my research. I read that.
Yeah, because of their temporary shutdown, comic prices have increased. Like, for example, I had to pay way more for both my new Wolverine Omni and my Constantine Omni because they had to get them from another distributor. Having only one distributor in town is a terrible, terrible idea in the first place.
That's literally how you start a monopoly.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time before something like this happened.
Yeah.
And Diamond was in a position to kind of fold. Everybody
loses when a monopoly's involved.
Right.
Just think of the board game. You got it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Diamond they had no competition. They were the only ones. Marvel, DC, they all went through Diamond for their publishing. And that was ridiculous. But yeah, so now Marvel and DC are both finding alternatives to get comics out. I had to wait a super long time to get my books in, and I had to pay more for them because they kept from getting placed.
Some of your stuff was on the waiting forever, dude.
Oh yeah.
I remember telling me you were waiting months just to get like one of these bad boys in here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it took a while. Took quite a while, but here we are though. But yeah, that is it, guys. So if you're looking to buy trade paperbacks or graphic novels or omnis in particular, those two websites are great places to get them. I support them fully. InStockTrades.com and CheapGraphicNovels.com.
Hell yeah.
All right. I think that's all I have for now, brother.
I'm good over here, my dude. Feel free to hit up our Patreon page. You know we obviously love the support. We love you guys as all the homies and homiesses out there. You're all great. The support on Patreon, we really appreciate it. We have appreciation deeply for each of the homies that chooses to help us out. It goes to a good cause. It helps us to, continue being able to put out awesome content like this. So again, thank you guys. And if you're interested in joining our Patreoners, feel free to hit up patreon.com/superhero homies. Okay. And there you go. I'm good to go, brother.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that is all for now, homies. But until next time, my name is Superhero Homie Q.
And as always, I am Superhero Homie Kevin. And actually, real quick to you special YouTube and cool cats out there, I forgot to give you guys some appropriate attention here. Thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that subscribe button. And feel free to share this. Let other people watch it too. We're trying to up the view count if you couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Get us 1 million views by the end of the day. You have your objective.
I wish, right? We got some stuff popping up here. Feel free to watch another video, listen to another episode. We're here, we're ready. We know it's quarantine season. We know it's available. You can go ahead and do it. Oh, yeah.